Our 911 communication center received a call from a young man who stated he had just killed his parents.
Oh, wait, what's going on?
Put your hand behind your back.
Okay, my child's across the street.
Okay, all right.
We watched the alleged victim responding several times during the conversation, saying questions are making me stressed.
A dramatic case has shocked both sides of the Atlantic as a British businessman faces attempted murder charges.
Kevin has always maintained he had no idea that this was going on, that he was living separately.
We now know the victim's name, but as far as how she died, that is raising more questions tonight.
Hey True Crime Besties, welcome back to an all-new episode of Seriously. Hello. Welcome back to an all-new episode of Seriously with me, your host, Elise. Today is Thursday, which means it's headline highlights, and we have got so many cases to talk about, so much stuff to go over. But first and foremost, I am very, very happy right now because I'm back in California. I'm back in my studio. I'm back like in my Zen place, and I just feels so good to be home, and I enjoyed being away, and I enjoyed tour and all that stuff, but like nothing beats home. That's why, you know what? That is why there's the expression, home is where the heart is. Nothing beats being back in your space, right? And so here, when I'm not like recording on the road, I just feel like I know where all my stuff is. For the most part, I know how my tech operates, and it just makes things, way more seamless. I'm really excited to be back here. I also am really excited because in 2 weeks, I'm going to contradict myself right now, okay, guys? But because I'm talking about how excited I am to be back in my studio, but I'm literally about to now go into another statement saying, in 2 weeks, I'm back out on the road and I can't wait to do it. No, but for real, I am. We're back out on tour in 2 weeks. We're going to hit Nashville, Raleigh, and Atlanta. That's the next leg of the tour. They're almost sold out, and I'm pretty positive all of the meet and greets are sold out, but there might still be like 1 or 2 left. So if you want to go and you're in Nashville, North Carolina, or Atlanta, now would be the time to grab and secure those tickets. You can do that at annieelise.com. Just go to the tour tab. But this tour has been so much, I don't want to say better, but it's been so different from the last tour. We did meet and greets, of course, last tour as well, but I don't know. I always tell you guys this, and I probably sound so cheesy and so lame, but I don't care. I'm just going to say it because it's true and it's how I feel. But there is nothing like this community that we have built. And meeting so many of you in person has just been honestly, like, not only so rewarding, but so fun, because when we see each other for the first time, we hug each other, because I'm a hugger, and you guys immediately, it feels like we're friends. Like, you're talking to me about your bachelorette party, your relationships, this case you can't stop researching. And for me, I feel like it's rewarding because that's my goal of this podcast, right? Is like, I feel like I'm talking to my best friends on here. I'm talking obviously to a camera and to like dead space in the air, but when I'm talking, I picture just talking with like my sister or my best friends. And so when I meet you guys in person and you run up to me, hugging me like I'm a friend you haven't seen in a year, I'm glad because I feel like it's resonating that way. That's how I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent now, so I need to shut up. But anyway, my point is I just have loved this tour so much, and I've loved meeting all of you. And I don't know who started this or who, decided this was going to be like the new calling of the tour, but so many of you have brought me like hometown things at these meet and greets. I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago where in Boston, one of you brought me like a big jar of fluff. I had never heard of fluff ever. It's apparently just like marshmallow in a jar. And you guys were talking about how good it is with like peanut butter sandwich. So we like taste tested it on stage together and ate fluff. In Philly, a lot of you guys brought me these amazing like little cakes from Philly, the saltwater taffy, Philly shirts, Philly mugs, all of these things. So some of you have brought me your books that you've written. So what I've decided is now behind me, I have my bookshelf with me here in the studio. I love Bravo too. And I know I'm going off on a tangent again, guys. Sorry, but it's my first intro back. Give me a break. I love all things Bravo and Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. So what I'm going to do is now convert the bookshelf behind me to all of the tour stuff. Everything you guys bring me on tour is going to go right here because that way it does feel more like a room where it's reminders of you guys. It's all of us together. It's special things, special effects, all of these things. And so, yeah, I decided that's what I'm going to do. So you'll see over the next few weeks as everything starts popping up on the bookshelf behind me. And again, thank you guys for everybody, you know, the generosity, how sweet you all are. And my whole point with all of that is I can't wait to get back on the road to Nashville, North Carolina, and Atlanta for this next leg and meet so many of you. And then after that, it's a big Texas leg. It's Austin, Dallas, and Houston. So again, get all your tickets now before they are completely gone. I'm getting an updated count later today. I'm pretty sure they are all gone, but maybe there's a few left. So now that long ass intro is out of the way, let's get into why we're all here today, what we're going to be talking about through headline highlights, because there is a lot to go over. First and foremost, Ruby Franke, the cult mom influencer, her ex-husband, Kevin Franke, is now suing Jodi Hildebrandt, the other, you know, the connections woman, the weirdo relationship that her and Ruby were in. And we're going to talk about all the details that are in that lawsuit, what he's alleging, and what that all means. There's another case that is just now breaking that feels like a cross between American Horror Story and I forget which season it is. I was going to say it's the season with Evan Peters, but that doesn't really break it down right. Which season was it? It was basically the season where like his mom is like a super predator on her own son. But it's like a cross between that and then the book A Child Called It. I don't know if you read that book. I read it in elementary school and I had no business reading that book, but it's a freaking horror show. I'm just going to say that out loud. But anyway, so it's kind of a new case that like is a cross between those two things, at least for me. That's what first came to mind. We're going to talk about a case where this like super established businessman started having an affair with his daughter-in-law, like a freaking sicko creep. And then, you know, some other shady stuff gets involved, murder, all of these things. We'll talk about that. I'm going to update you on the case out of Montauk in the Hamptons, the young woman who was found dead on the yacht. That's literally where I was I was there when it happened, not like when they found her body, but like I was in Montauk. So I was able to like get some information from the locals, kind of get some information from my friends who live there in Montauk and like what they're hearing. So we have other cases too. That's just kind of a couple of them. And we have a lot to talk about. Let me look at my clock. We're at 7 minutes and 28 seconds. I am so sorry, guys. I am so sorry. But whatever. Today it was an exception because it's my first day back. Okay. I'm going to stop talking and like get myself focused. Annie, get yourself focused. So let's start with this first case because this case is horrible. It's about a teenager who killed their parents, then walked in to a church to confess to the murders and thought that would like absolve him and that it would make everything okay. So let me break it all down for you. On Monday, August 7th, 911 dispatchers received a very chilling phone call from a 14-year-old named Trevor Lee. Now, Trevor told the dispatchers that he had, quote, killed his parents and that he was now inside this church and he was going to wait there until the police arrived. However, even before the police had received Trevor's 911 call, it turns out that Trevor's older sister had called 911 herself. And in this call, she reported the murders. She reported the shootings. Take a listen.
Are you there with him? Please send help. No, I'm all the way in California. Please, I need you to send help. What makes you? I don't know. I don't know where he's at. I have no idea where he's at. But please, hurry up. Honestly, I'm in the military. I don't know what goes on. Mother just had a good day. They went to the movies, bro. They went to the movies.
That was obviously deeply upsetting to listen to. I know. Now, get this. After the shootings, Trevor walked a little over a mile to the Cross Point Church, and that's where he then placed that 911 call, which I want you to take a listen to the audio from Trevor's call, because part of the call has been redacted, because in Florida, if a person makes an admission to a crime, then that admission is redacted to the public until the case comes to a conclusion and there's a verdict. So while you're listening to it, just keep in mind that Trevor had already confessed to the operator that he shot and killed both of his parents. But take a listen.
911, how can I help you?
Hello, I'm by the road. I threw my backpack away from me.
I'm stripped. I'm waiting for the police.
What do you mean you're
I have
stripped?
nothing in my pocket. I emptied my pockets and everything. There's nothing in my pockets. And I'm not on the sidewalk. I'm in the middle part.
You're going to be in the parking lot?
No, in the middle part.
In the middle part of what? Of the church?
I'm gonna pray first. I need to pray.
You need to pray?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Before you start praying, tell me exactly where you're at.
If you're driving towards the church, I'm right out in front of the church. There's a big cross. Do you pray?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. I'll listen to you.
Well, I was going to ask if you could pray for me, ma'am. Right now.
I'll definitely be praying for you, son. Okay, we've asked them not to point guns at you. Okay, they're going to be approaching you any minute.
So first responders arrived at the parents' home shortly after Trevor's 911 call. And sadly, when they arrived, they found 44-year-old David Lee and 45-year-old Brandy Smith dead inside their bedroom. Now, according to the preliminary investigations, it does seem as though the shootings had stemmed from some sort of argument that Trevor had with his parents on Sunday night. Although at this time, it's pretty unclear what the root of that argument was about. But it looks as though Trevor had used his own mother's gun to carry out this heinous double murder. Friends and family are, of course, in complete disbelief that this took place. I mean, it's such a tragedy and it's so horrible. And as you heard in the sister's 911 call, they had a good day apparently that day. So they're having a very difficult time trying to wrap their minds around all of this.
They were probably the best or one of the best families I knew. They were funny. And they treated me very well. They told me all the time that they loved me like a son, and they treated me as such. He was funny, charismatic. He always brought good energy, good vibes, and he was probably one of the best people I knew.
Kyrie says he and Trevor had been friends since elementary school, and they spoke on the phone just after midnight.
He told me that he loved me, and he told me that he was just calling to tell me goodnight.
Now, Kyrie is asking the community not to judge his friend by this one moment alone.
Now, as everybody's reeling from this, and of course trying to make sense of it, other people have tried to dig a little bit deeper to see if there is any sort of connection that can be made. And I'm not going to say that this is a connection because especially it was 6 years ago, but it is something that's out there. So I just want to mention it to you. But looking back at a Facebook account that belongs to Trevor's mom, Brandy, it featured a post from 2019 in which she said, "This little boy gives me pure hell. Everything I did to my parents, I'm getting back times 10. Y'all keep us lifted up in prayer." To which one person commented on this saying, "It's nothing a little prayer can't help you with." And Brandy replied saying, "Thanks, cousin. I need all the prayers that I can get. He is a mess. Always fighting." Which again, that is 6 years prior to when this horrific double murder took place. So is it indicative of anything? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it illustrates some past behavior that potentially could have escalated over the years. Who knows? But looking back, it is pretty haunting, right? Those words are a little bit haunting, at least to me. And it makes you wonder, what was it, if he was always kind of this troubled teen and this troubled kid, what was it that made him snap? Did he have a history of mental health issues, aggression, anger if he didn't get his way, just trying to, not listen to his parents? It's a lot of information that we want, but we still don't have the answers to. And of course, one of the biggest questions on everybody's mind is, will Trevor be charged as an adult or as a minor? Many argue he's still just a boy. He's still so young. His frontal lobe hasn't fully developed. He's impulsive. He doesn't know the repercussions of his actions. And at 14 years old, it's true. His brain is still forming. But does that mean that he shouldn't be tried as an adult? Look at Aiden Fucci. And I have referenced this case many times over. I know that. But Aiden Fucci was also 14 years old. And he horrifically stabbed his 13-year-old classmate Tristan Bailey to death in overkill over 100 times. I don't care about his age in a situation like that. You do the crime, you do the time. That is an adult crime. You deserve adult repercussions. But a lot of people, of course, are calling age into question. It's always going to be a battle out there. And people will always disagree on that. Some people say he's way too young to be tried as an adult. But of course, then there's the other side of the argument where this is such a crime that is so heinous that you cannot go lenient on it.
It's a tough one whenever you have someone so young, but the crime is so heinous that it should be treated most likely as an adult crime, because if you treat this as a juvenile crime, then you're limited to the sanctions that can be imposed. The juvenile system will lose jurisdiction over you at the age of 19. There's some exceptions, but this person, no matter what motivated him to do this, you would probably say that he deserves to be treated by the criminal justice system beyond the next 5 years, that this is not someone who you would want let out on the streets at the age of 20.
So with all of that said, not that I'm trying to spark some massive debate here in the comments, but do you think that 14 is old enough to be charged as an adult? It's a tough call, and I think it always does depend on the circumstances, right? I mean, he is very young, and that means that he certainly could still be a danger to society if he's released after only 5 years. That would make me feel very unsettled on the streets. I don't know. It's a very tragic case, and Trevor should be starting high school this year as a freshman. I mean, actually, this week he should be starting as a freshman. But instead, he's behind bars. It's just awful. Now, I want to talk about this other case, and I was unsure if I was going to discuss it with you guys because I saw it all over my TikTok, my Instagram, my YouTube, and I was kind of like, what the heck is really going on here? And then as I started to dive into it, I was like, this is weird. It's a little bit different from the cases we usually discuss, but nonetheless, it's freaky. And so I want to just kind of talk through it with you guys. But it's about a 29-year-old woman named Autumn Bardisa. And she was arrested in front of her home back on August 5th after she had pretended to be a registered nurse and treated over 4,400 patients. Now, this was at a local Florida hospital where she was a nurse for years. And like I said, treated almost 4,500 patients at 29 years old. But the truth was, she wasn't really a registered nurse. The arrest came after a 7-month investigation that was led by state and federal health agencies. Hospital officials say that Autumn had falsely assumed the identity of a registered nurse and that she had done this by using another individual's license number and then submitting false documents to secure her position. So let me break that down because I know it's a little bit confusing, but she apparently had applied for this position under the title of, quote, education first. Now, what this means is it's basically for people who have completed all of their schooling and then they just need to pass their national license exam. Autumn then later claimed that she had since taken and passed that exam. And then she went on to submit a license number belonging to a different nurse, somebody who she shared a first name with, but had a different last name. Kind of like, I don't want to say a loophole because obviously it's fraud, but a way to kind of cut through, being like, oh, I did take my test, and oh, this was just my former name, or it was a typo, or whatever the situation is. Which in her case, the way she actually explained the different last name was that she told the hospital that she had recently gotten married and that she changed her last name. So the hospital, of course, asked Autumn to provide this marriage certificate as proof, and she agreed. She was like, yeah, of course, no big deal. But she never supplied them with the document. And apparently, for whatever reason, unfortunately, there was never really any follow-up from the hospital on it. She was kind of able to just slide under the radar, which is a huge disaster of an issue and mess up on the hospital's part. I mean, I think there needs to be some sort of system in place for that. I don't know if it's an actual software system, but I would assume so, where oh, okay, we have to vet and verify their license. We're waiting on documentation. We still haven't received it. Therefore, until we receive it, they are not allowed to treat patients. I mean, it seems easy enough, right? I don't know. I would assume that somebody probably lost their job over this in the grand scheme of things, or I would at least hope that they did, but she was able to slide under the radar. So Autumn here now that she's a registered nurse, and I am going to use that lightly, in air quotes, registered nurse, she thought that she was very clever. And she was working for years at this hospital, treating thousands of patients, thinking she got away with this whole thing, this whole ruse. And now she was safe. She was in the clear. Nobody was ever going to check because it had been years at this point. But sure enough, all of that was about to come crashing down. See, in January of this year, which this is kind of unbelievable in and of itself, but in January, Autumn was offered a promotion. She was offered a promotion to head charge nurse, which is a very prestigious position. However, with this promotion, as the hospital administrator started going through her file in preparation for this, potential promotion and switch up, they decided, of course, to check the status of Autumn's license, make sure that everything was up to date. And as you can imagine, the administrators were shocked to discover that Autumn's license had expired. And not only had it expired, but they saw that the only license that Autumn ever even had actually obtained for real was for a nursing assistant. Not a registered nurse, a registered nurse that she had been hired for, that she had been doing for years. So then they dug a little deeper. And sure enough, they discovered that Autumn had never passed her nursing exam. In fact, she had attempted to pass, and she failed numerous times. Which, for those of you who are watching the video version of this, I want you to check out this body cam footage of Autumn being arrested last week, because she was like deer in the headlights, completely speechless, super caught off guard. It's only 30 seconds, so for all my audio listeners, I apologize in advance, but maybe you'll want to pop over to YouTube after this, but I am going to play it for you really quick.
Hey there, are you Autumn? Yeah. Can you step out of the car for me, please?
Sure.
Just turn around, put your hands on your back.
Oh, wait, what's going on?
Put your hands on your back.
Okay, my child's across the street.
Okay, all right.
Am I being arrested?
You are.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Can I ask? What can I...
We have plenty of time to talk.
Okay.
Just give us just a minute.
Can I see my file?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take care of all that.
Can I tell my boss so I can tell her and keep listening?
You have any other weapons? Juliet 34 flag. One female secure.
So after digging a little deeper, the officials found that the nurse that Autumn had stole all of this information from, the one she was posing as, actually worked at a different hospital. But what's weird is they had attended school together, yet they didn't personally know one another. So now Autumn is facing 7 felony counts of practicing medicine without a license. She's also facing 7 counts of identity fraud. And I mean, what a complete idiot this woman is, right? She did all of the schooling and she went to try to be a nurse, but instead of just continuing to retake her nursing exam until she actually passed and was qualified, she just thought it was a good idea to steal the identity of another nurse. I mean, what was she thinking? Clearly she wasn't thinking, obviously, but thankfully, she's not practicing anymore, and instead, she's behind bars where she belongs, but I can't help but worry about all of those patients that she treated. And look, I get it. She went to school, then she had to pass the exam. Not that that makes anything okay, but if I were ever one of her patients, whether she was like giving me an IV, performing tests on me, maybe even I'm going to be TMI here for a minute, but I've actually had to have this done, like inserting a catheter in you, to then after the fact, find out that this was not a registered nurse at all, and they literally had access to your body and your medical records and were treating you, that is such a huge violation. I don't know what kind of lawsuits or repercussions can happen from this, like in a civil way. I would imagine a class action at the very least, but probably even more, because again, that's just such a violation, right? It makes me feel like so gross and icky. Speaking of gross and icky, now we're going to get into that case that I talked to you about at the beginning of this episode, the cross between American Horror Story, A Child Called It, like just the mega of disgust. So let me give you a little bit of a trigger warning before we get into that, because the headline for this is basically that this online supermom allegedly made her child do horrific things with her in her bedroom. And like I said, this next story is just beyond disturbing, and nothing upsets me more than a wolf in sheep's clothing. And this woman is the epitome of that. So Christiane Alt is a founder of this online mom group called Las Vegas Supermoms. And this private online group was founded back in 2021, and it had thousands of members. And according to this Facebook account, it was kind of a space for moms to connect, to laugh, to vent about motherhood, share tips, tricks, all of these things. And Christiane was known as the ultimate supermom for her son. And I don't know her exact age. Looking at the photos, and I've tried to nail it down, but I've seen a couple discrepancies. Looking at photos of her, I would guess mid 40s, maybe even early 50s, but she's this very polished, very put together, beautiful Asian woman. In even some of her court photos, she has her hair pulled back in a top knot. She just looks very what's the term? Like quiet luxury almost, like very poised, very put together, just beautiful and like kept. And not that that means anything, right? But it kind of does go into like the stereotype of like she looked unassuming. She looked like just this, perfect put together mom. And I will say too, I myself have been in a lot of these Facebook groups. More so when I lived in New York, I was in this group called Brooklyn Moms. I was in a couple other ones where you share tips, tricks, if you need help with like school advice or nanny advice or a new item on the market for kids or whatever. And it's like kind of just like, motherhood empowerment and being together. And so she founded this group and for this particular like sector in Vegas, and she was known as like the super mom to her son. This woman who created this group, she was like the ultimate dream mom. She did everything for her kids. She helped other moms, all of these things. However, as it turns out, Christiane was anything but a super mom. To the surprise of many, many people who knew her and followed her and were attached to her in this Facebook group, she ended up being arrested for and lewdness with a child. See what I mean about a wolf in sheep's clothing? Because get this woman was actually allegedly her son. According to court documents, Christiane allegedly made her child rub their private parts all over her chest and her legs with, quote, the intent of arousing, appealing to, or gratifying the lust, passions, or sexual desires of the defendant. Guys, I am speechless. It is so disgusting. It is so foul. Not that it doesn't ever happen. We know it happens, but very rarely do we see a mother attacking her own son in such a perverse way, but it does happen. And that's why it's kind of giving me those American Horror Story vibes. Again, I apologize. I don't know the season, but it was definitely on there with Evan Peters and the mom, and it's just so foul. Now, this child told the authorities that his mom lured him into these acts with promises of more time on his iPad, saying, if you do this with me, you can have more screen time. How sick and twisted and deranged is that? Now, as if it could not get any more heartbreaking or just devastating and sad, this child, who is now 10 years old, only 10 years old, testified in front of a grand jury on July 15th. And he told the jurors, quote, she was wanting me to rub my private areas on her. I didn't want to. It made me feel uncomfortable. This 10-year-old child also stated that his mother would threaten him, saying, something really bad would happen if he told anyone, just trying to keep him silent, trying to keep him complicit. A video call between Christiane and the child was then played during the grand jury trial, and during which, in this call, Christiane told her child, quote, I'm just scared I'm going to go to jail. To be honest with you, I'm scared because you and I have always been best buds, and I miss you. She said, I need you to understand how serious all of the stuff that you said is. I know you're scared right now, and I know that you're confused, and none of this is your fault, baby. None of this, please. And then she just keeps begging this boy to tell the truth, saying, because the truth, you'll never get in trouble for telling the truth, baby, but lies can get people put in jail. Now remember, at this point, all of this is strictly allegations, accusations. It has not been proven, but it's very unsettling, right? And even in this jail call that was released, maybe it is a mother pleading to her child, like, you have to tell the truth if they maybe saw something on a screen or a movie, which I'm not saying that this child's making it up, certainly not. But I could say, like, you got to tell the truth now. But I also could see it and interpret it as she's trying to keep him quiet. She's trying to, coerce him into recanting, trying to keep control over it by saying, I'm scared I'm going to go to jail. I'm scared because you and I have always been best buds, like trying to lean on that, right? It just does not sit right with me. She did plead not guilty in court on July 30th, and she has since posted a $50,000 bond, but her trial is currently set for April of 2026. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about this. This is your own mother, the person who is supposed to protect you more than anyone else. What kind of sicko does this if it is true? And we're just going to have to keep an eye on this, and I'll update you as soon as I know more on that. I have to tell you, I've talked to you about me like being a carb loader, not a carb loader in a fitness way, just like I love carbs. I live for bread, whether it's a hot dog bun, a quesadilla, a burger, whatever it is. I love bread. And the other day I was on Instagram and my friend Ashley, shout out Ashley, bravo mom if you're listening to this, but she posted on her story and she's like, I just discovered the best new tortillas from the grocery store. They're called Hero Bread and like they're healthier and they taste so good. They're so fluffy. I was like, girl, I've been talking about Hero for literally a year now. Like, I'm so happy that she is on board with it now and like loves it and found it. But I always kind of get that feeling when I see friends of mine or family members try things that I've talked about and like that I personally love. It just makes me so happy. It like warms my little heart because I'm like, oh, good. I'm so glad they love it as much as I do. And when I meet so many of you when I'm on the road too, and you tell me, you know, that you've either tried Beam or that you tried the sheets that I recommended and how much you love them, it makes me so happy. But anyway, she posted about Hero Bread and it is no secret. I love Hero Bread. I have talked with you guys about them forever, it feels like. And it's always a pantry staple for me. Their hot dog buns and their classic burgers have 0 net carbs, 0 sugar, 11 grams of protein, and 22 grams of fiber. So you can enjoy your burgers with these like beautiful, fluffy, carby buns, or your hot dogs. You don't have to do like lettuce wraps. You don't have to do protein style. No, you can actually feel good about still eating the carbs. And just like Ash said, their tortillas are like next level. I always use these for a quesadilla for the kids, or if I'm making like a little wrap for myself, like a little sandwich wrap. They also have like Hawaiian bread rolls, which my kids will chief by like the sleeve of it. They love these little rolls. So their products are just like fluffy, tasty, they're good, and like it makes me happy because I know I'm making good choices and like I don't have to sacrifice on the carbs that I love. Ultra low net carbs, 0 grams of sugar, and high in fiber. They even have small batch drops of like these very indulgent favorites, like their 2-gram net carb Hero croissant. I love a good croissant in the morning, whether it's by itself or as a breakfast sandwich, whatever it is. So you guys should try it too. And Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code AE at checkout. That's AE at HERO.co. hero.co, code AE. You know those moments when you suddenly realize like, wow, if I hadn't been paying attention, that could have gone bad really fast. Whether you're like driving, whether you're like getting followed in a Target. I'm not saying I get followed in Target often, but you know, like those moments where you're like, I'm just really glad that I was alert and like on my game because that could have gone left really quickly. I had one of those recently. And it reminded me just how important it is to always be focused and keep my body, my mind, everything just sharp all day. Which I will just say, as cliche as it sounds, for me, that means making sure that I'm actually nourished. I'm not just like grabbing a quick snack or Diet Coke and running out the door, but like fueling my body. And that's where Kachava comes in. It's a whole body meal shake with 85 superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. And now they have this new strawberry flavor with a real freeze-dried strawberries, which I'm not exaggerating. It literally tastes like a strawberry milkshake, but it's packed with 25 grams of plant-based protein, antioxidants, and adaptogens. I've been having it every single morning, part of my routine. It's where I like, throw my collagen in, all of the things, and it keeps me feeling energized and focused for hours. Even on my hectic days where lunch is like a fantasy dream world and there's no chance I'm getting it in between recordings. And my favorite way to make it too is blending it with almond milk and then a little bit of frozen banana. It's just so good. So if you're like me and you want things fast, but you want to rethink what, fast food means, Kachava is it. There's no artificial flavors, no gluten, no preservatives, just everything that your mind and body crave in like one creamy, delicious shake. You have never tasted strawberry like this. Go to kachava.com and use code AE for 15% off your next order. That's Kachava, KACHAVA.com, code AE for 15% off. Okay, so this next case is kind of wild all the way around, and I had to go back and double check when I was researching it. Am I really reading this right? Is this really what happened? And it is. It was August 3rd, and a 62-year-old man named Mark Gibbon was on vacation with his 33-year-old daughter-in-law, Jasmine Wild. The two of them were from Buckinghamshire, England, and I hope I'm saying that right. I always get like the shire and the shire wrong, but basically they were on vacation with Jasmine's 2 kids in Davenport, Florida. And just to give you a little bit of the details of their family tree, Jasmine used to be married to Mark's son, Alex, and the two of them had the 2 kids together. Jasmine and Alex ended up getting divorced back in 2021, but Mark still spent a lot of time with his daughter-in-law, Jasmine, and his grandkids, the 2 grandkids. And Mark and Jasmine, according to friends and family, were very, very, very close. So fast forward to August 3rd. The two of them were on vacation together with the kids, and it was Saturday evening, and Mark and Jasmine were in the pool. They were having a couple drinks together too. But then the two of them started arguing about something that had to do with Mark's will. See, Mark wanted to leave his 800,000-pound estate to his two grandchildren, which I think in any ordinary day, you'd be like, oh my God, that's so generous of you. I can't believe that. That's so nice. My kids are going to be taken care of for the rest of their lives. Like, wow, how generous. However, in this instance, it caused quite a bit of tension. Then the argument started to get out of hand, and it turned from just verbal to physical. And Mark started pushing Jasmine. Then he even held her head underwater multiple times. Meanwhile, Jasmine's 9-year-old daughter saw all of this going down and jumped in the pool trying to save her own mother and stop her own grandfather from drowning her mother, which it's so crazy because I know I explained the family tree, but when you think about that, it's so bizarre, right? It's not something you see every day. This 9-year-old out of the pool sees her grandpa trying to drown her mom, so she jumps in the pool trying to intervene. It's just wild. According to witnesses, the 9-year-old, quote, came out from inside the house screaming at the top of her lungs, "Don't touch my mother," and then jumped in between them. But then Mark pushed her out of the way. And witnesses said that Mark only stopped when two neighbors who were staying in the villa next to them told him that they called 911. Police then arrived on the scene shortly after that. So when Mark was questioned by the police, he admitted that he did push Jasmine underwater. But he said he didn't have any intention of drowning her. It wasn't like that, which, okay, then you don't push somebody underwater. Like, what are you even talking about? Now, because of this, obviously, and it was a very dangerous and toxic situation, Mark was arrested, and he ended up being charged with attempted second-degree murder and 2 counts of battery. Jasmine ended up returning to the UK with her kids, and Mark, as of now, is still in custody in Florida. But here's where it gets interesting. When this incident was first reported, Jasmine told the police, quote, she could not breathe and she feared that she would drown, which obviously, I mean, she was shaken up by this entire thing. Who wouldn't be, right? That is awful and that is so scary. However, now, more than a week later, she's contradicting herself a little bit. Because get this, Jasmine recorded a video testimony for Mark's court hearing. She did this now back home in the UK. And in this, while she's talking about this same man who allegedly tried to drown her, she's now referring to him as nothing but an amazing grandfather, her best friend, all of these flowery, nice things. Just kind of not only recanting and like changing the script a little bit, but also it seems a little weird calling your father-in-law your best friend. I don't know. No offense to my father-in-law if you're listening to this, but like he's my best friend. That feels a little weird. But anyway, in her video testimony, she says, quote, I've always felt very safe around Mark and him being around my 2 children. I'm not afraid of him. This has come as a bit of a shock to me. I can only sing his praises for what a fantastic grandfather he is. She then went on to say that Mark is, quote, a wonderful grandfather to my children, and he was my best friend. I've never been fearful of him, and there's never been any scenario prior to this of any concern. Which the judge on this case said that now this video that Jasmine made is the complete opposite from the sworn statement that she gave to the police on the day of the assault. And because of that, because it contradicts each other so much, it's caused, quote, great concern for the court. So the judge ended up denying Mark bail. And I know that she was probably in shock the day of that alleged drowning, but it's just such a major contradiction to say how in one moment you feared for your life, but now you're saying this man's your best friend and he would never hurt a fly. I don't know. It feels a little weird. Maybe like there's some other motivation for wanting to get back in his good graces. I don't know. And just stick with me on this. Because right after this, a bombshell dropped. And apparently, Mark and Jasmine have been in a romantic relationship with one another for the past few years. Which maybe that's not a shocker to anybody hearing this episode, but also like, think about that. You divorce your husband and then you start dating his dad? What? Like, what is happening here? It's wild. Now, a source close to the family said, quote, Mark and Jasmine have been seeing each other for a few years, but they've never admitted it. Alex and his dad don't speak at all. There have been a number of issues within the family. He feels an awful betrayal at how his dad has now struck up a relationship with the mother of his 2 children, also his ex-wife. The source said that Jasmine spends basically all of her time with Mark too, that they take the kids on vacation together every single year, that They just spend so much time together. Jasmine also has apparently posted pictures of just the two of them where they look like very much a couple. However, Jasmine has denied all of the claims of an affair. Now, in addition to this crazy family lore and family love triangle, if you will, there was a massive, and I mean massive, falling out between Alex and his father Mark back in 2023. See, after Mark and Jasmine's divorce, Mark still worked for his dad's company. However, the two of them, for whatever reason, while things were still good and they were working with each other, they got into this big argument one day on the street. And Alex ended up running over his father with his Porsche. Running him over with his car. Family members said that Alex had apparently had enough of his father, so he got into his car and he tried to drive away. But his father, Mark, would not move. So witnesses said that Alex shouted at him to get out of the way, but Mark would not move. So because of that, he was hit by his car as a result, which maybe then if they're not moving, you don't hit the gas, right? You don't accelerate. But I'm just talk about family drama. So as a result of this, Alex was sentenced to 2 years in prison, a 3-year driving ban, and a 5-year restraining order. He ended up being released 6 months ago. But as I said before, he and his father do not speak. They definitely are not on good terms. So this whole thing is a lot of family drama. I mean, first off, this guy, Mark, was probably having this romantic relationship with his daughter-in-law. Then he allegedly tried to drown her to death. She is completely shaken up and scared by this. But then she makes a whole video saying how good of a man he is, how he's her best friend, and how he would never hurt her. Then on top of all of this, a couple of years before this weird love triangle situation, the girl's ex-husband gets sent to jail for literally running over her now new lover, daddy-in-law, with a car. I mean, this is what Lifetime Network was built for. Am I right? It's just so wild. Now, as of right now, Mark remains in custody for the attempted murder charges, and he's awaiting his next court date. Meanwhile, Jasmine is back in England with her kids. So this is definitely something that I'm going to keep a close eye on because I just don't understand what the truth is here. Maybe we will do a deep dive on this too, because it just feels very complex. And look, if I had to guess, I'm not a detective, I'm just nosy, but if I had to guess, I would say that when Mark said he was going to leave the £800,000 estate to his grandkids, that maybe she was pissed thinking that she would get a chunk of that estate. And that's what caused the fight. That's what then caused the physical altercation. And that the reason she's recanting is because she wants a piece of that money still and is trying to get back in his good graces. Could be totally wrong, but that's kind of where my mind goes. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Now let's talk about lunatic Ruby Franke for a minute. And I'm sure by now most of you guys know these two, Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. And you know my feelings toward both of these people. But the infamous Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke case is back at it again, back in the headlines. And let me just say, this whole case really does seem like a never-ending story. New things keep coming out. New lawsuits keep getting filed. But nonetheless, here we are again. Now, as you guys all know, Ruby Franke was that YouTube family vlogger. Her channel was called 8 Passengers. Her associate, her romantic partner, her co-conspirator was Jodi Hildebrandt, the owner of Connections, which I believe is a cult through and through. There's also been, I think, a Hulu documentary on them. I know we've done a million deep dives on this podcast. I will link one of the most recent ones in the show notes, but, there was a lot going on here. And there was a lot of online speculation that during this weird cult vibe thing with Jodi, Ruby was abusing her children. Then, sure enough, one of her sons escaped Jodi's home, ran to a neighbor for safety, and the truth just came pouring out. And the truth was, Ruby and Jodi had subjected Ruby's children to things that no child should ever be subjected to. The amount of torment, cruelty, and just, it's beyond what you can even picture in your worst nightmare. It's disgusting. It was honestly a very horrid case. So the two of them were both arrested and ended up pleading guilty to aggravated child charges. And in February of 2024, each of them was sentenced to 4 consecutive prison terms, with each term ranging from 1 to 15 years, which we've talked about that before of is this just? Because it means that they could serve as little as 4 years, but then they could serve as much as do the math, Annie, 60 years? So who knows what they'll end up serving, but under Utah law, the maximum total prison time for these consecutive sentences is 30 years. So again, the minimum time that they're going to serve is approximately 4 years, but the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole will determine the final duration. Now, one of the big enigmas of this whole thing was, where exactly was the children's dad, Kevin, during all of this? How did he not intervene? How did he not know what was going on? And how could he just let his children go through this and abandon them and not know what was happening, or at least step in to know what was happening? But Kevin claimed he had absolutely no clue what was really going on with the kids, that Jodi just completely took over Ruby's life and just kicked him out of everything. He said that his family was completely divided, and because of that, he was living separately from all of them, which I have not gone easy on Kevin, and I think he is like scum. Truly, I do. I think he walked away from his children at the direction of Jodi and Ruby. What kind of father does that? He should have seen and known, and he did know, in my opinion, that these parenting methods and these, what would you even call it? What's the term? Like punishment methods were very severe. And so he should have known that he should not have left. But that's my opinion. And again, you can listen to all of that in the deep dive, especially when he found out after this arrest and what his response was. I think he still is blinded by Ruby, even though they're divorced. I think that was all done in strategy to gain custody of the children. I don't think it's because he actually doesn't love Ruby anymore or wanted to divorce her. And I would argue that they're probably still together in some capacity. But anyway, now Kevin has filed his very own bombshell lawsuit against Jodi. And in that lawsuit, he's seeking over $300,000. Now, the basis of the lawsuit, it's kind of like this medical malpractice lawsuit. And I want you to take a listen to how Law and Crime explains it, because they really do break it down in simpler terms.
This is essentially a medical malpractice-like lawsuit, okay? He's suing for negligence, where someone owes you a duty, they breached that duty, you were harmed, and their actions caused that harm. Those are the kind of elements: duty, breach, causation, harm. Here's what it says in the complaint. Quote, defendant owed Kevin a duty of care as a patient, and in a vulnerable emotional state, she was in a position of trust. Defendant breached this duty of care using improper mental health care techniques as outlined in the paragraphs listed above.
So in the lawsuit, Kevin is suing Jodi for negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligent infliction of emotional distress. Kevin says that Jodi's actions completely broke down his family, ruined his marriage, and also threatened his kids' well-being. Jodi would refer to herself as a psychologist, which I also have to say is a huge exaggeration, but it was to get clients to believe in her and believe in her process. So Kevin, because of that, believed her wild claims and her practices, her methods. Kevin also said that Jodi diagnosed him as a lustful, narcissistic, manipulative, deceptive, controlling, and selfish man. And that Jodi convinced him and his wife Ruby to believe that all of these accusations were true. And Jodi had said that the treatment for this diagnosis was that Kevin and their oldest son had to move out, that they also had to cut off all contact with their family members so that it could protect his marriage and his family. And according to him, he believed her. So he did that. He left. Jodi also had told Kevin that she was going to stop being his therapist for 6 months, convincing him that he was unworthy of Ruby and his family. She said that she would follow up with him after the 6 months, and that it had to be 6 months of, quote, absolute solitude, and 6 months of him only communicating with God. And I want you to take a listen to Kevin talking about the terms that Jodi set for him.
Basically, there were all these rules now placed on me, I could leave when I wanted, but I couldn't come back until Ruby gave me permission. I couldn't come into the kitchen to eat until Ruby gave me permission. And the upstairs where Jodi roamed was completely off limits. I couldn't go upstairs anymore in my own house. And there would be, Ruby would dictate all of the terms of how our interactions would be, when we would talk, and that was hard. And it was during that time that I really became, I would say, dependent upon Ruby. If she said a kind word to me, my whole day was made, right? Around that time, things with Ruby started, picking up. And I didn't understand why, but, Ruby wanted to meet in a parking lot and wanted me to sign over titles of documents, the two of our cars wanted me to sign them over to her name. and to Ruby. But I was like, okay, I'm just not, I'm in total compliance mode at this point. Just like, I'm a good husband. You see, you can trust me. And so whatever she asked, like, sign over the cars to me. No questions, just okay. And then another thing, she was like, I might want to do an investment, but I will need your signature. Do you trust me enough that I could get your signature if I wanted to pursue my own investment? Yeah, sure. Whatever you say.
Now, look, I understand manipulation and being brainwashed and being in a cult and not even knowing that you're in it until you're in it way too deep. But how do you let this woman just come in, dictate your life, dictate your marriage, dictate your fatherhood, and if and when you're going to be around your children? At what point do you stand up and basically say, like, no, you crazy Looney Tune, get out of my family, get out of my house. And if Ruby's not going to like fall in line with that, then I'm going to do what I need to do to protect my kids and get custody of them. But we're out of this. Like, no one's going to tell me I can't be around my kids. And I get it. Maybe that's easier said than done when you are in a cult and when you are being brainwashed. But like, to me, the writing was so on the wall here. So I don't know. So back to this lawsuit. Now, the biggest part of it is that Jodi had convinced Kevin and his family that she was a licensed psychologist and that she was meant to be providing him a service and helping him. However, she, as we know, according to him, did the exact opposite and did him a massive disservice. So he's suing her for $300,000. And what do you guys think about all of this? I'm not sure that Kevin's defense is airtight, but we'll see if Jodi tries to fight this whole thing or not, or we'll work out some sort of settlement. The craziest thing in all of this is when I did my latest update on them, which was months and months ago, Connections, the program, the cult, is still happening. It's still going on and people are still managing it, which is just like mind-blowing to me. But, cults are gonna cult. Cults are gonna cult. Now let's talk about this whole mysterious Hamptons murder, because there's been a lot of information over the last week and a half that has come out. And like I said, I was staying out there, and so I was able to talk to some of my friends who live in Montauk, some people who heard, different rumblings, but as of this point, everything's alleged. There's no concrete information, but just kind of wanted to talk through it with you because it is something that a lot of you guys have DM'd me about. But this young 33-year-old designer was found dead on a boat that was docked at the Montauk Yacht Club in the harbor in Montauk in the Hamptons. She had co-founded the luxury swimwear and resort wear brand called East by East, and this all first went down on August 5th. It was shortly after midnight, and she was found unresponsive on a 54-foot yacht. The yacht was called the Ripple, and like I said, it was docked at the Montauk Yacht Club. Now, a man aboard the yacht called 911, and nearby boaters and residents were on the scene and attempted CPR, but unfortunately, she was pronounced dead at the scene by first responders. And there's kind of been a lot of conflicting information because witnesses reported a very chaotic scene, saying it was right around midnight, they heard screaming, they heard banging, they saw this naked man running along the dock, screaming out for help, and this naked man reportedly yelled at people, do something, even threw a sunscreen bottle at a neighboring boat, trying to get their attention. And when I had first heard about this, in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, if he was naked and he was running for help, my guess is that there was a potential OD situation, that maybe it was during sex, maybe they had had sex, and then when he woke up, he saw that she was unresponsive, so he was still naked from having sex and ran off the dock to help. Like, it didn't scream foul play. Now, as I've talked to some people around there are rumors that this was not her boyfriend, but that she did have a boyfriend who was back in the city in Manhattan when all of this went down, and that she had texted her boyfriend like a little earlier in the night saying something along the lines of like, hey, I'll be home around 1, or I'm leaving here around 1, or I'll call you around 1, something like that, saying she was out with a coworker. So we don't know. Was this naked guy and the guy who called 911 a coworker of hers? Apparently she had a different boyfriend. There also were some rumors that she had a wealthy second boyfriend out there, but I don't know what that involvement was. And just a lot of, mixed stories out there right now. And that, she had said she was going to Uber around 1 o'clock or be home shortly after 1. But then obviously like this happened and just tragically. And she lost her life. But as of right now, it looks like the early autopsy and body exams are showing no signs of violence, and the cause of death remains undetermined. So foul play is not suspected, but the investigation is still ongoing. Again, to me, it seems like, okay, maybe they were partying. Maybe she was hooking up with a coworker and cheating on her boyfriend, and maybe they were doing drugs, and maybe there was an accidental OD, or maybe it was accidentally laced with fent or something like that. But the Suffolk County Police Homicide Squad is investigating the case, and detectives processed the yacht for evidence, of course, and they reportedly did find a white powdery substance on board. And I will just say right now, too, first and foremost, her family in Ireland is considering hiring a private investigator. They also have criticized how the news was conveyed to them. But I'm just going to say this as a PSA, okay? I understand wanting to do drugs recreationally or have fun or go to a music festival or do this and that. It is so scary these days because almost everything is laced and cut with something else to drive the price of the product down. And no matter what testing you think you can do, or your dealer and your friend of a friend who you can trust, who would only sell you pure stuff, you don't know. And I personally, in just my hometown, have known people who have passed away from things being laced with fentanyl. And so I would just encourage you, not only be extra careful, I would say just don't do it. It's not worth the risk. Even myself, look, I'm going to keep it real with you. Not that I used to do drugs often, certainly not, but I would go to a music festival and I thought it would be fun to do Molly or do something like that back when I was way younger. And, I've tried things here and there. Now, I would never in a million years risk it because I've seen too much. I've heard too much. I know too much. I know what the street drugs are turning into, and it's not worth it. It is not worth it for that short window of happiness and partying and all of that. Not to be lame and say get high on life, but find something else. Drink alcohol if you want. Not saying that alcohol is any better. That's a whole new poison of itself, but and I'm trying to be careful with what I say here, obviously. I'm not trying to encourage anything, but you don't need to mess with that stuff because it literally can and will kill you if you do it. It's just not worth it. So anyway, the investigation's ongoing. I'm going to let you know what we learn, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Now moving into some more lighthearted news. For all of you who entered to win the CrimeCon tickets, I was giving away 2 free weekend passes to CrimeCon. We have picked a winner. I have announced it in the show notes below. You can see the name. We've contacted them already. We may do this again soon, so check back for that. But thank you all for entering. And if you were not lucky enough to win these 2 free passes, you still have time. I don't think they're sold out yet. You can buy them also for 10% off using my promo code AnnieElise. Just go to crimecon.com and you'll get the deal. But I'm excited. I think I mentioned on my last episode, Stephanie Harlow and I are going to be doing a live session together there, about an hour of a live episode, kind of talking with you guys right there on the stage, talking through cases, answering questions. So that'll be really exciting and fun to meet all of you and to connect with her and do that session together. And it's going to be a really good weekend. So that's what I got for this week. Thank you for tuning in with me. I know today was a little bit longer of a headline highlights than we normally do, but whatevs. And I'm going to be back with you on Monday. Let me look at my calendar really quick. Which case is going live Monday? If it's the one I can't remember. Oh yeah. I'll be back Monday with a deep dive into a case that I think I have received no less than 5,000 DMs, emails, and comments about. So check back on Monday for that case. And as a reminder, if you are not following the podcast yet, take a nanosecond. It takes 2 seconds. Go into whatever podcast app you're listening on. Just press follow. That way you will not miss those episodes as they get released. And also, as a reminder, for all my people on YouTube who are watching this, the podcast airs before YouTube on podcast apps, and it's the uncensored version. YouTube likes to censor everything, which is so freaking annoying because a lot of the terms I use are legal and medical terms, but whatever, I have to play by their rules. So if you ever want the uncensored versions of these episodes, you can get those for free over on the podcast app. And my last PSA is for any of you who hate ads, loathe, hate, won't just fast forward, but want to skip them entirely. All of my Serialously deep dives and 10 to Life deep dives do get uploaded in video format with no ads on Patreon at like the lowest tier you can sign up for. So if you feel like I'm just done with the ads, I just want to watch these through Patreon instead of on YouTube because I don't want to watch ads or I don't want to listen to ads on the podcast, you can do that. And it's patreon.com/AnnieElise for ad-free listening. All right, guys, that's all for ad-free listening on the video versions. And then we also have ad-free listening available on Apple Podcasts, which you can do that directly on the Apple app. All right, that was a lot of information. I'm going to go grab a snack. I'm pretty hungry. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll be back with you on Monday. Until the next one, don't join any cults. Be nice. Don't kill people. And let's just say it. Not that I felt like I would ever. This is a sentence I never thought I was going to say, but I'm going to say it. Do not sleep with your father-in-law. Just don't. It's icky. It's gross for so many reasons. All right. Bye, guys.